Thank you, Bill, and thank you, HealthCell, for inviting me to tell my story tonight. In over my 30 years of practicing urology, I always admitted my major surgical procedures to the ICU with a Foley catheter and an order for hourly urine outputs, which were notoriously inaccurate. My wife, Nancy, who is the office nurse and office manager in our solo practice, continually heard me complaining about this. And then, right before I retired, I was an expert witness in a medical malpractice lawsuit, and once again, the urine output recordings were tremendously inaccurate. So one night, Nancy and I are sitting there talking, and she casually asked me, "How's the lawsuit going?" And I once again complained about the inaccuracy of the urine outputs. She said, "Ed, I'm tired of hearing about this. Why don't you do something about it?" I said, "What do you mean, do something about it?" She said, "You're an engineer, you're a doctor, you ought to be able to fix this." So I thought about it, and urine output's often called the sixth vital sign, and all the other vital signs are measured electronically. But urine output is measured the same way Florence Nightingale measured it in the 1800s. So I called a friend of mine, Dan Parker, whose entire career had been in the medical device field. And I told him, I said, "Dan, I want to build an automatic urine monitoring system that will accurately measure the urine and wirelessly enter the data into the EMR." Well, Dan was intrigued, but he needed more information. So he said, "I'm going to set up a teleconference with the head of research at the Cleveland Clinic," which he did. Several weeks later, she gave us a call back, and she said, "I ran this by my engineers, and they said that if you would do this with a weight-based system and convert that weight into a volume, they thought we could do it." So Dan and I had a big decision to make now. We knew this needed to be done, but we knew that it was going to take a lot of time, effort, and money to do it. So Dan flew to San Antonio, and we met at Aldo's restaurant, and over a nice dinner, a fine bottle of wine, and a lot of discussion, we decided to go for it. So our first order of business then had to be to find a company to build the product. So we did a lot of research, and we narrowed it down to 3 companies that we interviewed. The third company we interviewed was a small company named Mueller Medical in Raleigh, North Carolina, that had 3 engineers, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and a software engineer, and their presentation to us was extremely impressive. So on the 26th of October, 2015, we signed a contract with Mueller Medical to build our product. We were planning on building a product that would hang from the side rail of the bed, just like urine drainage bags do, and then hang the drainage bag on it. Well, shortly after this, we decided, hey, we've got a product. We got to name it. So we took, a bunch of suggestions, and we decided on Sensica urine output. Well, why? I don't know, but we liked it. And then we shortened it to Sensica UO. We thought it had a nice ring to it. So I spent most of November of 2015 roaming the halls and roaming the ICUs in San Antonio, trying to figure out how we were going to hang this on the side of a ICU bed and which ICU beds it will work best on. Well, it readily became important to me when I looked at it and I saw that if we hung this device on the side of a bed, when the side bed rail was put down, it would crush it. So that was not going to work. So we went back to Mueller and we sat down and we just brainstormed about this, and we decided that we're going to have to build a stand to set beside the bed with a ring attached to it where we could hang the bag. And so Mueller took this back to their lab in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they started working on it. By January of 2016, they had produced a 3D printed prototype, and we wanted to make sure we were on the right track. So we all flew to San Antonio, or they flew to San Antonio. I'm already here. They flew to San Antonio, and on Wednesday evening, we met with 6 ICU nurses at Aldo's restaurant. And Thursday morning, we went down, talked to the chief medical officer, the CEO, and the director of nursing of the Baptist Healthcare System at their offices on Quincy Street. Thursday afternoon, we met with the chief medical officer, director of nursing, and 2 senior nurses from Methodist Hospital at the Hornbeak building. And that evening we met with 6 ICU physicians from the San Antonio Med Center area, once again at Aldo's. Then from this we gained a tremendous amount of information, which Mueller took back to Raleigh, North Carolina, and started working on in their lab, changing the Sensica UO. The rest of that summer, we pretty much spent attending medical meetings. At these meetings, we'd talk to doctors, nurses, hospital administrators about the device, what they liked about it, how we could change it. And we at that time too, we took their badges and we scanned their badges and we built a database of physicians and nurses and hospital administrators from all around the country. So by the spring of 2017, Mueller had developed a product that in their lab was extremely accurate. And I had the same product in my garage that was also extremely accurate. So we thought at this time we needed to take it into the hospital. So I went to the administration at Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital, told them what I'd like to do, and they very kindly agreed to let us take it into their ICUs. So over the next months, we brought it into the ICUs, and as expected, there were some problems, some glitches that need to be fixed. If it was a software problem, we could fix it there over the internet. If it was a hardware problem, we would ship the device back to Mueller in Raleigh, North Carolina. They would fix it, ship it back to Methodist Specialty and Transplant. We'd put it back on patients. By the end of the summer, things were going extremely well. The units were accurate, and we were very, very happy with the development. And at this time, a lot of interest was being generated around the country for the product. So we thought it was time to start marketing this product. So in November, we took it, of all places, to Rapid City, North Dakota, or Rapid City, South Dakota, for our first clinical trial and demonstration. We ran it there for 2 weeks in their ICU, and it ran extremely well. It was extremely accurate. And that resulted in a sale of 33 units. In December, we continued with our demonstrations and trials, and by the end of December, we had sold 69 units. We had over 100 more units in the pipeline to be sold pending clinical trials after the first of the year. One thing we found, though, in these demonstrations and talking to hospitals was that they would like to have a temperature measuring capacity in the device. So we went back to Mueller. We talked to them. We asked them if they could do this, and they said absolutely. So here you can see the temperature, being recorded on the monitor. This will be incorporated into the product, which should be coming out in the spring of this year. So we were very happy. Everything was working great. We went to Robling Medical in Raleigh, North Carolina, a medical device manufacturing firm, signed a contract with them to produce the Sensica UO. The first run of 100 units and 5,000 rings will be coming off in mid-February. And then on the 31st of January, we got a great phone call where they informed us that our patent application had been granted and that our IP was now protected. So, in response to my wife's, jibing me to quit complaining and fix it, we have gone out and we have built an automated urine monitoring system that accurately measures urine, measures the temperature, the core body temperature of the patient, and wirelessly enters it into the electronic medical record. We think now that we have brought urine output monitoring into the 21st century. And we hope that in the next few years, the Sensica UO will be the gold standard of monitoring urine in the ICU in every hospital in the world. And I do believe now that my wife, Nancy, and Florence Nightingale are proud of everything we've accomplished. Thank you.